Thomas Humphries Jr. grew up in Arkansas as the firstborn son of a carpenter and nurse. Along with his two younger brothers, he attended parochial school and the Diocesan Catholic High School for boys, where he participated in the United States Marine Corps JROTC program. He earned Eagle Scout rank and was elected to the Vigil Honor in the Order of the Arrow. He studied forestry and philosophy at the University of the South, which is Sewanee, worked as a youth minister in Tennessee and Arkansas, and taught high school algebra and outdoor education before going to grad school. He then studied at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., for a master's in systematic theology before moving to Atlanta to complete a PhD in historical theology at Emory University. He and his wife are raising their daughter in Florida. In addition to serving as a full professor of philosophy, theology, and religion at St. Leo University, he also serves as a volunteer district chief in the local county fire department. Thomas has authored two books, Ascetic Pneumatology from John Cassian to Gregory the Great, and Who is Chosen? Four Theories about Christian Salvation. He has also published multiple academic journals, which you can find listed in the show notes. Thomas volunteers at his parish as a catechist and sacristan and offers classes and retreats with the monks at St. Leo Abbey. You can contact Thomas at thomas.humphreys@stleo.edu. Thomas, thank you so much for being here today with us, and welcome to the Joy of Transformation.
You're quite welcome, and thanks for the invitation, Kathy.
Oh, you are so welcome. And we were just talking about some of the things we'll discuss. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about your background that we actually didn't touch on yet was your background in forestry and this outdoor education that you were able to do, which I think at some point I would like to hear a little bit about that too. We have so much to talk about.
It's true. I grew up in Arkansas, and our moniker is the natural state, and like it's true. So much so that somewhat jokingly, but somewhat seriously, people used to say, oh, I've never been to Arkansas, and most Arkansans are kind of like, well, let's keep it that way. Like we're happy being out in the trees and doing our own thing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the Boy Scouts got me out camping all through high school, a little bit of junior high when scouting starts. Our troop was committed to camping basically once a month throughout the year. And
Wow.
in Arkansas, where there are actually four seasons, unlike Florida where I live now, that meant you might be out in freezing in January, and it might be quite hot, and you're playing around in the lakes or the rivers in the summer.
Wow.
And when I was, finishing high school, I thought, what do I want to do with my life? And it was basically, I want to keep playing outside.
Yeah.
And so forestry is the degree that lets you continue to play outside. As best as I can tell, God had other plans,
Yeah.
and so
I'm
I got to
sure though
complete that study.
that's such a great though experience to have and I mean, we're campers, we love the outdoors too. And my husband was a Boy Scout and he didn't get to Eagle Scout, but he was very involved and was able to do different types of camping trips and stuff through that and really learn how to live you know, in nature.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because my daughter-in-law said one time, my husband like does all the knots, that you have to know for,
Yes.
and he's extremely resourceful. And the one time we were talking about him being a Boy Scout, and my daughter-in-law said, this all makes a lot of sense now, because there's so many things that you learn that you really use in life, like, yeah,
Yeah. It's fundamentally true. Though
yeah,
we're never, happy about hurricanes coming. My wife has the same kind of sensibility. She's like, well, I mean, it's not like we can't just camp out in our own house. We know
yeah.
how to build a fire and cook things and keep it
Yeah,
going.
that's awesome. Wow. So, so I want to start, which I usually try to, finding out about your personal faith journey. Where did it start, and how did your faith become such a big part of your life to the point that it's, your career, and everything. So,
Yeah. It is true that at some point I kind of realized about myself that I wanted career and faith to overlap. On the other hand, as anyone who's ever worked in a church knows, there are things that just are about a career and a job, and you have to separate those sometimes from the other aspects of the faith. Um, but let's see, the beginning properly so would be baptism as an infant, right? My parents were both very practicing Catholics, and that was important for them and became important for me. I think, as most people would have known, I'm born into a family which is Catholic. I look back on it and I realize that our scouting troop was sponsored by our Catholic parish, and I went to school there until eighth grade. Played on the sports teams, and all the guys that were going camping with me and learning all those skills were the same guys we were in classes together and going to mass together. The scouting troop made it a priority to worship at mass every weekend, right? So it was not just camping, but part of our logistical planning was, where are we going to go to mass, right? We're
mhm.
going to be 3 hours from home, and it's going to be
Love
Sunday
that.
morning. Do we want to go to mass there and then drive home, or do we want to hit mass halfway
Yeah.
through and
Yeah.
maybe Saturday evening vigil makes sense for other plans? Backpacking, it was the same kind of thing. Like, we got to be sure we get to a road crossing so we can catch a car, and even sneak into mass smelling like we've been in the woods for several days. Um, I look back on that and I realize uh, there was a lot of formation through scouting, sports, ROTC as well. It was the same kind of thing, right? We're going to go on a competition. We're going to be gone all weekend. And it was simply a priority that we at least fulfilled our obligations and had the opportunity to do that. I think over time that adds up, right?
Right.
Mass in elementary school, right? 2 days a week outside of Sunday. Sunday mass is a priority for weekend obligations. Just all of that definitely rolling around. But um, that's an opportunity. That's a habit. None of that
Hmm.
is an appropriation of the faith at a personal level. And that for me started somewhere like junior year, senior year. I mean, I was already driving. I was doing all kinds of other things, and being a successful 16-year-old boy, and
Hmm.
uh I my Catholic high school had an incredible number of mentors just around. In fact, 2/3 of the faculty at my high school were themselves alum from that same high school, right? So there was a whole lot of brotherhood and multi-generational
Hmm.
masculine formation, right? All kind of wrapped up into one. And the rector of the high school was a particularly intense and tough man. And I mean, the guy understood adolescent male psychology incredibly well. It was Monsignor Tribu, Father
Hmm.
Tribu, we called him. He smoked cigars. He walked through the hall, and it was a signature thing. And the other faculty will now tell stories. Monsignor Tribu died decades ago, but he would walk through the halls, and if he heard something going on in class that he didn't like, he would blow cigar smoke under the door, or through the window, to sort of let you know that he was there listening. Right? The punishment was not too far around the corner. At any rate, an incredible man, taught with a profound loving heart, spoke the truth, and really had a grasp of that. So Father Tribu's hearing confessions regularly during Lent. Confessions were always available in the lunch hour, and so he'd just sit in the chapel in the confessional. And I honestly don't remember the proximate things that were going on in my life, but God definitely put it on my heart that it was time to go to confession. I'd not been to confession in, I mean, I couldn't really remember the last time I'd been to confession, going to mass and doing all those things, but
Hmm.
not making use of that sacrament. So I go in, I kneel down behind the screen, because I mean, I'm terrified of the man, and I know what's going to come next, right? Because make the sign of the cross and forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. And it's been, I don't know how long since my last confession.
Hmm.
Even though I was behind the screen, I knew that Tribu knew me. I mean, the man was a real shepherd. He knew all the boys by voice, by walk, by everything, right? And I had been fortunate. I had had Tribu freshman year for religion class. He taught every one of the freshmen religion class, but then he also taught literature. He had a master's in literature, and I had him for literature class as a junior and as a senior, right? So I like he knew me face to face for
Yeah.
sure. Here I am, confession behind the screen. Honestly, Cathy, I knelt down, I said those words, and I braced myself, like 17-year-old Tommy, just holding on to that kneeler because I was absolutely certain that Tribu's fist was going to punch through that screen, grab me by the throat, throttle me, and say, Humphreys, where the hell have you been? Right? Like, what are you doing with your life, man? And so there I am. And he says, welcome back, my son.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
And it was like completely the opposite of what I expected, but fundamentally the faith of the church. Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
It's not where the hell have you been? Right.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
sometimes we need to hear. Right. Right.
Right.
But it was those words of love spoken from the old man priest. Who, in my mind at 16, 17 year olds had the power of life and death. And he did.
Hmm.
Right. But he knew that as a priest, he had the power of life and death, not to beat up or throttle a young man, choke him out,
Right.
but rather to say, this church has power over sin. And I'm
Hmm.
going to exercise that power now. You are where you belong.
Yeah. Well, I just
Welcome
want to
back.
share two things because I there's so much that you're sharing that I think is so valuable. The first thing, and there's a lot of similarities with the way that we raised our children, and the way that you were raised. And I remember going to church, and maybe once our boys had some of their hockey stuff still on because we were trying to get into a mass. But I think that making that effort to prioritize the faith is so important, and that's what you experienced in your family and in your community growing up, which I think is wonderful. And then the other thing is, I interviewed Deacon Matthew Newsom, the other day, and he talked about how the first time he stepped into a Catholic church was so different than what he thought it was from the outside. And I think that what you shared about the confessional and what people think the church is like and what the church is really like, I think your example is is like perfect because people think it's about judgment and it's about condemning, people that don't know the faith, that don't know what the church is about or what it is like to experience it. And I think that what you shared is really an ideal and very common
Yeah.
experience that people have. So yeah, if
Yeah.
you want to continue, but I just wanted to share those two things with
Sure.
you.
No, in fact, like I like those words, and I think they need some unpacking. Judgment and condemnation, or being judgmental and
Hmm.
judging. In what I found in Father Tribu, and what I found in all of the faculty at Catholic High, and essentially everyone there, was that they were incredible judges. Right? They they
Hmm.
they they really did. But Tribu didn't stop short and say, "Oh, all there is to you is absence. All there is
Hmm.
to you is years of not making use of the sacrament, or all there is to you are these sins." In
Hmm.
fact, what Tribu said and what the tradition says is, "I see more in you
Hmm.
than you have been able to live on your own."
Hmm.
And now what we're going to do is we're going to unpack that deeper you, that real
Hmm.
you, that right, the in my case, the man that really is trying to live. And
Hmm.
so that's the experience of redemption, right? It is a judgment that sees the sin as the perversion of the deeper reality, the deeper truth. And then it says, hey, uh, I could not be happier
Hmm.
that you have gotten to the edge of realizing you are not who you want to be. And with God's grace, you can be something way better. I want to help you with that. Let's
Hmm.
call on that Tommy. Let's make him alive. Let's wake him up, and let's
Hmm.
go live that life.
And
And
what
I
a
mean, not in
loving
those
way to
words.
say that, like what a loving way to say welcome. What did he say? Welcome home, my son, or welcome
Welcome
back, my
back, my son.
son. I mean, could there be a more loving, statement?
There could not be, especially from, again, this was not, I had a lot of respect for this man, right? So that this was not, let me look the other way. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter that you've been a
Mm-hmm.
horrible person or you've not lived up to our standards or, you've failed. It was I know that you have done these things and I know that you are better than that.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and that's the sense of judgment that I want to get out because it's a real judge of character, right? It recognizes the brokenness, but doesn't stop there. It sees underneath the brokenness.
Yeah, so the judgment to a point is important. We need to be judged and we need to judge ourselves. We need to judge our environment to make decisions. But I think people that don't understand the faith, they get stuck in that judgment and they think that that's all the church is about. And that
That's
is
right.
not at all
Yeah.
really, that's only the part that gets us to where we want to be. But it's not really the goal of the church is not to judge, period, you know?
Yeah. And in fact, I mean, there's a prior point about this, which is, I think, one of the most profound observations in the tradition. I cannot know something is wrong unless I know what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the fire department, you got to take classes and become an EMT. Okay, but like the first thing to learn is what a regularly functioning body looks like and feels like and sounds like, and right.
Right,
And so
right.
it's like, hey, I know that your pulse ought to be this way, right?
Yes, yep.
Um, but if I don't know that your pulse ought to be somewhere around, 80 or 100 as an adult, then I've got no benchmark, no clue
Right,
what it means that your pulse is 50 or that your pulse is 150, right?
right, right.
And what I'm saying is the judgment of the church goes something like this. Oh, your blood pressure's high. How do I know it's high? Because I know what your blood pressure should be. Let's
Mm-hmm.
get back to what it should be. Your arm is
Mm-hmm.
broken. I only know your arm is broken by knowing what an arm normally looks like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what you want out of a good EMT, a good first responder, is to go, yep, that's a broken arm. I
Mm-hmm.
know how to fix it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
you do not want is someone who says, hey man, I'm not going to be judgmental. I'm going to look the other way about your broken arm.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
You're having a
yeah.
heart attack, you know, to each their own, right? You be
Yeah,
you, I'll be
yeah.
me. No, it's like, wait a minute, I know exactly how bad this heart attack is.
Right.
That's what allows me to know what medications we have in the bag, what interventions we can make
Yeah.
right now, and
And
where we
giving
can try
chest
to.
compressions might even break your sternum, but it's going
That's
to
right.
save your life, right?
That's
So,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, okay, I didn't want to sidetrack you. I love all that you're sharing and but keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you,
Oh,
but
sure.
keep going
So
with your
so
yeah.
yeah, I mean it's but it's like it's the reality of this sacrament of confession. There I am, in high school in this very intense experience. It's the intense reality of confession that really begins, as far as I can tell, my personal appropriation of the faith. And by that
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, this is real for me. This is not just my culture. This is not just my family. This is not just the force of habit,
Yeah,
but there is a reality here that I actually want for myself.
good.
I'm
Yes.
not finished unpacking that, but by any
Mhm.
means. But in a large way, the work of college and the work of my 20s was really coming to terms with the fact that I am seeking a real God. I am seeking a real faith, a real hope, a real love, and that
Wow.
God is seeking me as well.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. It just, I love hearing the stories and how God speaks to us in ways, speaks to each of us in a different way, in a different experience. But it just, I'm never not surprised or excited to hear these stories because I just think they're just amazing. So in the introduction, I introduced you, I mentioned that you are a sacristan and a catechist. And because part of our conversation is to bring kind of more awareness to listeners about the faith, could you tell us what a sacristan and a catechist are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sacristan is one who takes care of the sacred things, usually the sacred vessels. And so a sacristan sets up for mass, right? Just
Hmm.
prepares the stuff that's needed, most especially for mass. Typically, there's a room called a sacristy.
Mm-hmm.
That's where like the priest vestments are, and sometimes the altar server's vestments, and the candles, and the incense, and all the
Mm-hmm.
accoutrement that you need. Typically, the work of the sacristan is to prepare for that, get all that set up, and then to clean it up afterwards. Uh, at a lot of parishes, mine included, the sacristan often helps coordinate some of the other things, so just double checking that the lector is there or ready to go. But in reality, all the people helping in my parish know a lot, and we all take care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there's some huge checklist that only one person's responsible for. Everybody's participating
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a registered
in
nurse and
that.
there's a lot of
Um,
team playing, and it sounds like your background with the Boy Scouts and working with the fire department, you know, there's so much setting up and preparing and even like in emergencies, you want to be set up and prepared ahead of time in case something happens. But even the way that you're discussing supporting each other that are part of the community, maybe doing what you need to do, but noticing that the book isn't out for the liturgy, or so you bring out the book or whatever. You're like, I could just see all of that,
yeah.
and I can see how you are not only have your own personal relationship with Christ, but you are an integral part of the community in which you live. And there's nothing like being a part of a team that has the same goal and focus in mind, I think. And unless you've worked in like medical
Yes.
healthcare, I think that you don't experience it the same way. There's very much to be said about that. Um, so the sacristan, okay, and then you're also a
A
catechist.
catechist, yeah. A catechist comes from a word that fundamentally means handing on or passing on.
Yeah,
It's the Greek form of tradition, which again means to kind of hand on, right? To hand over. And the sense in Christianity is a catechist is one who's handing on the faith. And so for me right now, that looks like every Sunday morning working with the teenagers preparing for confirmation. And then I often teach extra classes like adult ed classes, a men's Bible study, or a class on prayer for Lent or something like that, literally to hand on the faith. Uh,
wonderful.
Often it's in an intellectual way, right? Like this. I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's also in a practical way, like we're going to get together and pray evening prayer or something like that. That's also a
Mm-hmm.
way of handing on the faith.
Yeah, so it's by sharing, like teaching, but it could also be by experiencing it with each other. Um, yeah, I love
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, yeah. So on the topic of the liturgy, because I know that this is important to you, and I was really excited when you brought this topic up because it hasn't been really talked about, and it is so central to our faith. So if you can explain what the liturgy is, first of all, that would,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's like $1 million question. So it's one of those that there are books written on the topic which don't exhaust it, but there are also pretty standard definitions. A fairly standard definition is liturgy is the public worship of the church or the public work of the church. And so, what is the work of the church? Right? It is to offer worship to God. It is to participate in communion with God. It is to pray on behalf of the world, to ask God to help us. It's to entrust ourselves to the mercy of God. It like I'm not aware of other traditions which use the word liturgy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a word that has a lot of meaning 2,000 years ago. In terms of just a Greek word, it would mean something like the public work. So I often get perspective on it by thinking, at some point in time, we sort of decided to use this word to designate things like mass or liturgy of the hours, or right, the prayers, the formal prayers that surround a sacrament. Why did we choose that word? And I envision it being something like this. I mean, we're asking, what is the actual public work of the church? What is it for which we're known? And that's principally mass, right? What sets
Mm-hmm.
us apart is this way of worshiping.
Mm-hmm.
But then that means liturgy has got to be distinctly Christian, is got to have something to do specifically with Christ,
Hmm.
becoming incarnate, the Word made flesh for us, the death and the resurrection of Christ. So it's not just a thing we do in public, but it's a thing that connects us to that God, right, who becomes human for us and for our salvation.
Hmm.
If it's distinctly Christian, it's got to be Trinitarian. It's got to do with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit.
Hmm.
And so at the deeper level, we start to think about how does something which can be as routine as the Mass and lasts 50 minutes and sometimes has good music and sometimes doesn't, and sometimes the
Hmm.
air conditioner's
Hmm.
working and sometimes it's not,
Right.
uh, how does that actually let us participate in heaven, let us participate in
Hmm.
the life of the Trinity? How does that make us present to Christ on the cross or make the cross present to us?
Hmm.
Those are much more profound senses of liturgy than just public work.
Okay. Yeah. And it's funny because I don't always go to the liturgy of the hours, but I always think of the liturgy of the word and the liturgy of the Eucharist. And I think there's something very sacred about it because when we go to Mass, as opposed to going to a service where there's a preacher and a speaker, and I don't mean to oppose or that I'm against it, but I'm always like, what is it that's so special about the Catholic Church? Because, in Buffalo, New York, where I live, there has been like different scandal and things with the church. And over the last few years, I was continuing to go to church and I would think, okay, like, why am I coming here? Because you can see why people would be upset or distraught over things that happen. Not that I believe that is the majority, because that is not the majority of what happens in our church, but you can see why people have become disheartened. But when I would go to church after doing this the last 37 years and questioning myself, like I'm constantly asking God for guidance. And, it's not just about going to church, but about a personal relationship. And I would go to church and I think, okay, why am I here?
Hmm.
And my eyes would go to the tabernacle.
Hmm.
And it's a reminder that we are not there for the priest. I mean, we love the priest. We want the priest to, lead and support the community, and we want to support our priest. He's a part of the mass, but we're there because of Christ and Christ's presence in the church. And so for me, allowing someone's actions to take away something that is so vitally important and is a way that I can tangibly practice my belief in God, it wouldn't make sense for me to leave. Do you know what I mean? So,
I Yeah, I
yeah.
know what you mean. I mean, you've hit on a number of themes. Yeah, I was in a parish when the sex scandals for the priests broke in the
Hmm.
early 2000s, and I remember like immediately we had to change our policy, and you were not allowed to touch small children, especially, right? My office was actually in the preschool. I was a youth minister,
Hmm.
and there were about 40 preschool kids at our parish preschool, and the large room, like my office opened into this large room, and that large room was often used for naps and
Hmm.
activities.
Hmm.
Uh, but these small children were so loving, and I had a great time with them. They had excellent toys, right? And so I got to play with their big Legos and blocks and all that kind of stuff, and they liked that too. But like anytime I would walk out of my office as youth minister, 40 children would give me a hug, right?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, there's this diocesan policy that I'm not allowed to hug these kids. And it was kind of like nobody has told those kids that, right?
Yeah.
It like I remember all of the difficult things of going, man, a couple of people really messed it up for all of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Oh,
and
and one thing I also want to mention when we talk about it, a lot of times we'll refer to the priests, but it's not all the priests. It's like some, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Not even half or the majority of it. But yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
go
no,
ahead. You're right.
that's part of what at the time I did not know a priest who could have done any of the kinds of things that were coming out. And
Hmm.
so everybody was abhorred by this, but we all reacted, and rightly so. The things
Hmm.
that they did, were perversions of the most fundamental gifts. I mean, sexuality
Right. Yeah.
is in the garden, right? God makes male and female before we're kicked out of the garden. So this
Right.
is a most profound gift. It answers a problem. It's not
Right.
good to be alone. We're not
Right.
able to love. We're not able to give ourselves without another. And here we have priests who are supposed to be the ones who offer sacrifice on behalf of everybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of offering sacrifice, they're taking, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not giving, they're they're stealing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're it's hard to imagine a more fundamental or more profound perversion
Mm-hmm.
of what we're supposed to be, and we're rightly frustrated with that. I was going to say angry. I don't know if we're ever rightly angry, but it's
Mm-hmm.
certainly unjust. We're rightly
Mm-hmm.
moved and puzzled and wounded, even when it hasn't happened to ourselves, right? Like I say, I
Right.
didn't know anyone who had been abused by priests, and I didn't know at that time any priest who had abused anyone.
Right.
And yet I felt those wounds
Mm-hmm.
because when I walked out of my office, all of a sudden I was no longer free to lovingly hug these small children who knew nothing of abuse, and you know what I mean, like
Right.
that
Right.
was not our reality. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. On the other hand, yeah, we're certainly not going to mass for the priest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be the wrong thing, or at least not the priest that we kind of see in front of us. We're going to mass to participate with the one true priest, the high
Right.
priest,
Right.
Christ. Um, on the other hand, like we're human, we belong in community, we're made for each other, and so there's no way for me to go to mass alone,
Yeah.
right? I have to go to mass with this community, and when this community is broken in ways that I know, uh, actually, I ought to be sad. It would be
Mm-hmm.
really weird if I'm coming to participate in the life of a broken community and I'm happy go lucky,
Yes, you're right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the another part of that realization is that yeah, we're right to recognize that we're broken
Mm-hmm.
and in need of something else. Now you were talking about the tabernacle and God being present. Um, and this is a principal category for liturgy, what we're doing at these things in the hours, in the word, in the Eucharist.
Mm-hmm.
uh the question is something like this: God is present, am I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when my presence includes sadness and brokenness and being hurt, I have to be authentic to that. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, what our tradition is telling us is that the best place to be authentic is right there where God is present, and so is everyone else.
Yeah.
And in fact, the worst thing you can do when you're hurting and broken is to avoid and abandon everyone else. I get that when you're broken by someone whom you should have trusted, like
Yeah.
an authority figure, a priest, everything is thrown into confusion. It's not clear with whom you can relate. I mean, I really do understand that.
Yeah.
But like, I think what everybody who's experienced that is puzzling over is, well, then where else can I go?
Yeah.
And if I have nowhere to go, that's an abandon all hope. That's despair.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes all we can muster is Peter's words. Uh, this is a hard saying, Lord, but to whom else can we go?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now, on the other hand, I hope that we've all experienced those times when gathering as a community is not principally an experience of brokenness and our limitations and horrible things that people have done,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
Mm-hmm.
like, these people are awesome. Like, I want to be here, right? That this is
Right. Right.
great. Somehow the mass, especially, contains both of those,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of it. Sometimes it's upbeat, it's awesome, it's fast, it's full music, and sometimes it's really somber or it's really slow
Mm-hmm.
or reflective. Yeah, we have to leave room for all of those extremes in the liturgy.
And it sounds like the way you're describing it, it reflects life, right? And it reflects a
Yeah,
family. A family doesn't have all good times all the time. Life doesn't have all good times all the time. And being close to where Christ is where we find our light and clarity and how we're able to heal through these things.
yeah,
And And I think when you're going to mass regularly and you are, I love that we start the mass by confessing and asking for forgiveness and asking for our other, our neighbors to pray for us to,
Yes.
I mean, I just feel like every growing up, raising our children, and you're always so busy and there's so much going on. And sometimes it gets like there's like an argument or something before you go to church and you're like, and then you get there and it's like, how can you leave mad? Like it's hard to leave,
Yes.
the mass mad. You're like starting fresh again, for the
Yes.
week. But yeah, go ahead, continue about your what you want to share on the liturgy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose I want to back up and say, I mean, I think we were envisioning, someone who's thinking about returning to liturgy, who's been
Mm-hmm.
away for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and uh, in the horrible cases, you've been away because you've been personally abused. There's
Mm-hmm.
healing that needs to be done there, and in other ways, you tried and it didn't seem right for you. Something
Mm-hmm.
wasn't happening. This community's not good. This mass seems bad. There continue to be other kinds of abuses. Not the personal, physical, emotional abuses, but people not celebrating liturgy well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the first thing that we got to talk about, especially those of us that are like happily practicing Catholicism, or at least vigorously practicing
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism to the best of our ability, is um, what we're saying is God really is present. This really is the place where you can enter profoundly into a relationship with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, which is a relationship of love. God is love. This is universally relevant to everyone. 100% of the humans ought to be participating in this liturgy. And so when I encounter even one human who says, I don't think that's relevant for me, like the burden of proof is on me,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have to take a step back and say, wait a minute, um, am I not being authentically Catholic in such a way that invites everyone else to participate in the liturgy? Right. And this is that
Mm-hmm.
judgment, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not about me looking at you going, why are you not coming to mass?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be first about me looking at me saying, man, am I the limiting factor?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are on the other side of that and you're going, man, I've been to two or three parishes, they're not doing it for me. I genuinely want to say you may be correct. That
Mm-hmm.
those parishes may be failing to live up to the reality. In fact, I know all parishes are failing to live up to the reality because we preach a gospel that's beyond our ability, right? That
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you're necessarily correct, right?
Right, right,
It can be more, it should be more, but don't stop.
right.
You've had one bad encounter, you've had three bad parishes. Find a place where you can see God's beauty,
Yeah.
and it's fair for someone who cannot see God's beauty to show up at the door of a Catholic church and demand that we reveal it. It's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we're saying. I know the God who's true, who's good, who's beautiful. And if somehow I'm obscuring God's truth and his goodness and his beauty, then I got to find a way of getting out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to do better at liturgy. I've got to do better at catechesis. Okay, it is fair for you to demand a liturgy which is good and true and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going somewhere and you're not finding that, I want you to look for it elsewhere. I want you to
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
another parish. I want you to find the place which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And our parish has those acoustic tiles in the ceiling. It's uh, not particularly beautiful. And every now and then there's a water stain or something like that. And I'm sitting there looking at it going like, man, this is not really where I want to be. I'm saying that's a fair observation. You
Mm-hmm.
can sit
Mm-hmm.
with that and you really can say, I want a beautiful church. On the other hand, what is it that we're doing? I think you put your finger on it earlier. I don't remember the exact phrase, but what we're doing is offering, we're giving,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's ultimately a gift of self, and so one of the things I'm giving is my presence, And as an adult human, my presence includes my intellectual focus and my emotional focus and my physical focus. And so, like, if you're showing up and not participating, then you're not giving it a fair shot.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're looking for is not entertainment. What you're looking for is a place where you can meaningfully give yourself to this community to be a part of it, and give yourself to this God. And like, there's a real chance that if you're showing up at mass, but you're not singing, you're not saying the prayers, you're not helping set up, you're not greeting, you're not, playing your instrument, whatever it is that you have to offer, uh, like, that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
And try something different. I'm thinking right now because it's Florida and everybody's going back to the pool, and
Mm-hmm.
like, if you go to the pool but you don't get in the water and swim, you know what I mean? If you didn't
Right.
bring your bathing suit, it's kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, maybe it wasn't a particularly lovely pool. On the other hand, you didn't swim, right? You
Yeah.
didn't jump in. It's the same thing we ask about other people. Oh, you went to this event. Did you say hello to anyone? Do you know their name?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. There's a give and a take. Okay,
Yeah.
so back up. I'm scattering my thoughts. I want to make it more clear because what I'm saying is, um, if you're in the perspective of being the practicing Catholic and you're trying to invite someone else into this reality, then what you're really trying to do is say, I know this profound God. I want to give you a vision of that. I want to help you participate in that. And I'm saying the means of participating in that is ultimately self gift. It's offering all that you have and all that you are. And so if you're trying to participate more fully in the liturgy, then what you need to think about is ways that you can more fully give yourself. This is exactly the advice that we all have about marriage and relationships, right? We can get into a funk
Mm-hmm.
thinking, oh, all these problems my wife has, right? Uh, but but at some point, like, I got to take ownership of my problems, right? You know what I
Yes.
mean? And when I'm trying to discern, is this the right woman for me? I have to think, is she the right woman for me? But I also have to think, am I the right man for her?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is this where I can fully give myself? And it's no small secret that scripture and tradition are full of speaking of liturgy in terms of marriage. This is the wedding feast. This is the
Mm-hmm.
great nuptial, right? This is how we participate in love, which generates new persons.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I have to approach liturgy from that standpoint. All right, then.
It's interesting because when you were talking earlier about how people like asking people to come back to a church where they've been hurt or abused or whatever, uh, it made me think of how many times that we're hurt or we're stressed or what we feel that we need the most is really like what we want the most is actually not what we need. Um, so many times, like my husband and I, today's our anniversary, we've been married 38 years. And
Wow.
yeah, I can remember when our kids were younger and our anniversary is in April. It's not the most beautiful time of the year here. It's starting to get better in, Buffalo, but say in March we'd be talking about something to do and March was always really stressful for us. It just seemed like there was a lot going on and a lot of responsibilities and a lot of bills to be paid and everything. And I remember thinking, like Steve and I would get in these there would be something going on that we would both be stressed and it would seem like when I really needed him to be there for me, he felt like he really needed me to be there for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's never like, oh, I really need it and then oh, that person's like, here I am, whatever you need. It's like both people feel like they need it. They need from the other. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's kind of like then you're feeling disappointed because the other person's not giving you what you want And they're dealing with the same thing you're dealing with, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost like the last thing you want to do is go spend a weekend with somebody that you feel like isn't giving you what you want. But actually, what you really need is to spend the weekend together, you
Yes.
know? And
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of the church. It's like the devil was very wise in creating this sin between the priest and some of the priest and the congregation because it separates people from their lifeline. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It separates them from where they're going to really experience true healing. Again, like you said, they have to find the right place, and it has to be the right place for them. But I think that it's kind of similar to that. What we think we want to curl up in a ball and whatever, but we really need to get out and go for a walk, you know?
Yes.
So, I mean, those are just examples, but what you were just talking about with the church being like a family or a marriage, that's kind of what came to mind earlier. So I just wanted to share that.
No, that's great. And I think you're exactly right. It's like, I mean, yeah, I'm the father of a daughter, and I'm the only man that lives in my house. I am realizing a hug is the right answer more often than not. You know,
Yes,
like
yes.
oops, the conversation is not working. Maybe we should try something else. Maybe what we need is a hug. We need to be together. Or again, I think what I'm trying to say is I get frustrated with these other people, and I start thinking it's all your fault, and this is not working
Mm-hmm,
because of you. And in reality, uh, I have to take a step back and say, what am I contributing to the problem? And
mm-hmm,
and the problem here in terms of liturgy is something like, what is holding me back from giving myself?
mm-hmm,
And I'm saying it's fair for me to say, I really don't want to give myself here. It's not beautiful. It's not good. It's not true. Right. And okay, fair enough. The church has an obligation to be the good, the true, the beautiful, and especially in liturgy. Um, but I need to find a way to give myself. I need to find a way to participate in that giving. And
mm-hmm,
and so what can I do to prepare myself for that? Well, I mean, for me, going for a walk in nature, realizing the goodness of creation and the beauty of creation, and the fact that God gives freely to me. I mean, God creates out of nothing. God sets with the world. And then like to think, wait a minute, this didn't all start with me. I'm not
mm-hmm,
the center of the world, the center of existence. I'm not the center of my family. In fact,
mm-hmm,
like I'm not even responsible for me. Like I didn't bring myself into existence,
mm-hmm,
right? It's my mom and dad who are most narrowly responsible for my existence. But on the bigger picture, my existence is a gift from God,
mm-hmm,
right? Like God gave me life. God gave me me. And so how do I be a better me? I recognize that I am a gift.
mm-hmm.
And so I can only be me if I give myself, if I'm given. I keep getting in a fight with this woman I love. Maybe the answer is give more, not take
Mm-hmm.
more. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Right. I
Yep.
think that's what you're saying about the
Yeah, yeah.
bits. Here
It's
I
the
am
thing that you want to
frustrated.
hold on to the most, but that's what you're supposed
Yes.
to be letting go of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, a real question is, well, what's holding me back from giving? And maybe what's holding me back from giving is abuse I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Let's heal that, right? Let's find redemptive love. Maybe it's I don't like guitars at mass. Okay, then find a mass where they're not guitars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The sometimes when we reduce it to the limiting factor, it becomes pretty obvious. This is what I got to do. But okay, one part of the problem is uh, I'm right to demand beauty, but I'm actually not going to mass for entertainment
Right.
because beauty is not for entertainment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beauty is an invitation to a deeper personal relationship. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just think about that with other people, right? The beauty of your husband, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist so that you can just sit there and stare at him. It exists so
Mm-hmm.
that you'll start a conversation with them. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
It's like there's more going on here than a pretty face, right?
Mm-hmm.
That first beauty is an invitation to a deeper beauty, and
Mm-hmm.
that deeper beauty is an invitation to a deeper beauty, and that right, the idea is that eventually all of these things are invitations into real communion.
Mm-hmm.
And what Catholicism is saying is that real communion uh, is more profound than anything we can know.
Mm-hmm.
right? That eye has not seen and ear has not heard how beautiful that reality is, how wonderful that reality is, how transformative that reality is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to be careful that I hear that message, which
Mm-hmm.
says, hey, Tommy, you can only imagine healing at this level. You can only imagine community at this level. Don't let your imagination be the limiting factor for the reality of God and the reality of the liturgy. And when I think about that, the limiting factor here for me is not like trying to figure out, is God present? It's not trying to figure out whether the priest is a good and holy man or not, or whether I'm more mature than my neighbor. The limiting factor is actually something like, at the end of the day, I'm not convinced that I can make myself fully present.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I don't know if I can show up on a Sunday morning for 50 minutes and really focus on God and really be present to my neighbor and actually mean the words that I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because the community is going to invite me to say, I confess to you and to Almighty God, right, that I've not been the best me I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can do that. The church is going to tell me, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I'm not always convinced I want my sins taken away,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Just leave me alone. Let me wallow
Yeah.
in my sin for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I don't want to be transformed. And it's like, but I know if I actually show up and give it my all, then I'm off to being a way better me than I can
I
imagine.
wonder
I'm
how, I
scared of it.
wonder what the percentage of people is that knows that if they started, going back to church, that they would experience transformation and it probably will be beautiful. But I'm pretty content with the way things are right now. And I'm comfortable where I'm at right now. And I don't know if I want to get into all of that stuff.
I suspect that that's like a fundamental human condition. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the case with the arguments we have with our spouses, right?
Yeah.
It's like, here I am. I have already committed to this is where I'm going to be for the end of my life. And you and I are working out our problems together face to face, right? There's no alternative. And yet I'm going to hold on to this grudge and, fight about this thing, right? Like,
Right, right.
actually,
Yeah.
no, man, I know how this is going to end, right? It's going to
Yeah.
end in
Yeah.
forgiveness and we're going to make up and it's going to
Yeah.
be glorious. But I'd like to be angry for just another hour.
I just have to share another marriage story with you that I just is so it's so funny and I think it speaks to what we're talking about. But and it's my anniversary, so I guess we just have to deal with a little extra marriage story today.
Yes.
But when my husband and I maybe like the first half of our marriage, I feel like whenever we would get in an argument, I used to joke with him because on happy days the Fonz could never say I'm sorry because he thought he was always right.
Yes.
So like I used to tease my husband and say, I'm so, because he had a really hard time with that, like just saying he
Sure.
was sorry. And the second half of our marriage, sometimes we are just starting uh, a conversation that seems like it's going in a direction where it could turn into an argument. And my husband will say, I'm sorry. And I almost think he's joking. Like, I'm like,
Right.
are you being sarcastic? You know what I mean? But he sees where it's going. He knows that it's going to be a waste of our time to keep going with it. And if he thinks that there's an apology for him to say, he just says it right away so quickly that it almost doesn't seem real. But
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you also.
He, he's a wise man, and maybe that's
Yeah.
advice for all the husbands or potential husbands listening out there.
Yeah.
It,
And
it's
I'm like, what do
certainly,
you mean you're sorry?
yeah.
No,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
it's awesome. Yeah.
No,
So,
it's not tongue in cheek, right?
no.
It's a reality. It's a I think an acknowledgement of the reality that the point of being together is to work through the problems, not to
Mm-hmm.
wallow in them. Yeah, I think
Yep.
that's right. And I,
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the insight that offers for liturgy, for thinking about returning to worship, is, God has said, "I'll be there anytime you want to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever problem you want to work out, let's come and do it." And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
think about the incredible, profound gift that this is. right? What we're saying is this is the God who uh, did not deem equality with God something to be grasped, but rather emptied himself and took the form of a slave, becoming human in our
Mm-hmm.
likeness and
Mm-hmm.
everything except sin, and then accepted death on a cross, right?
Yeah.
Opens his arms as wide as they can possibly be open and said, I know all of your fears. I know all of the things that you've done and which have been done to you. I take it upon myself, but it doesn't stop there, right? I mean, like this is what we just celebrated Easter. Death, it turns out, the most horrible thing we can imagine is actually not the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
God is
Mm-hmm.
bigger than even that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the liturgy is God's gift to us to continue to experience that, to enter that mystery more deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And the only admission requirement is effectively that we show up and try to be present.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you really do have to sit with that and say, then am I just trying to be present? Because
Mm-hmm.
like what's demanded of us at the Mass is not that we understand all of it.
Right,
What's
right.
demanded of us at the Mass is not that we want to be present. It would be great if we did, and the tradition promises us that we will understand it more deeply and even beyond our own ability. The tradition tells us that our emotions will be reordered and this will become a joyful
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah.
But the admission requirement to Mass is not like have everything worked out perfectly. The
Right.
admission requirement to Mass is just show up.
Yeah. Come
And in
as
all
you are,
honesty,
right?
I mean, yeah, come as you are. I mean,
Yeah.
like this needs to be said. Here I am, a PhD theologian with books, and I get to teach this stuff all the time, and form men coming for the diaconate, and students of mine have become priests, and like I'm
Yeah.
deeply in the tradition, and sometimes all I can do is manage to just drag my bag of bones over the threshold of the door and say, "Fine, God, I'm here."
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
I made it.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is a
Mm-hmm.
place to start. That's what's demanded,
Yeah.
or asked. That's what's invited. Um,
Interesting. Yeah. And I think back of I grew up Catholic, but my family wasn't very strong practicing going to mass regularly. And then I had kind of what after I had a very traumatic experience, and then I really it was almost felt like converting to my own faith, where I really then took it in and like delved into it, learned more about it. And I would just go to mass, and I didn't put expectations on myself. Like I didn't go there feeling like I have to do and know everything. I went there thinking, I know people that come here and they're getting something from it regularly.
mhm.
And I want to see, I've seen these people in my lives and I've seen how they've dealt with problems. I've seen how they treat each other. And I want what they have. I think it's going to help
Yes.
me, you know? So then I started going to church, and I just literally would go and maybe I would read from the missal or something. And I did grow up going to Catholic schools in high school, so I know the prayers and things like that. But when you're not practicing regularly, you don't always remember the order of the mass or what's supposed to be said or done or whatever. But I just remember just showing up. There was like a couple years where I would go, whether I was with my husband or by myself, and I just took it all in. And I think that is such a great starting point because I didn't feel like there was pressure that I had to be or do something. I just was kind of going with an open mind and just letting things happen if they were meant to happen. And it seemed like over the course of the 2 years that I started really understanding more and wanting to be more a part of it. And then it was almost like closer to the 2 year point that I started increasing like this anxiety and this stress I was feeling related to this trauma that I experienced because of a depression and treatment and all that, which was good. It helped me, but it was still traumatic, you know. Um, but I remember then a couple times having this like stirring feeling, which I thought was anxiety. But now I feel like it was probably the Holy Spirit, trying to bring out whatever was like holding me back.
Yeah.
And I talked twice to a priest, and the second time he actually hugged me, which I welcomed. It was very
Right.
much needed. And he prayed and encouraged me to ask Jesus to take this from me, this burden that I was kind of carrying on myself. I was assuming what other people were thinking of me, and I was looking at myself that I was less than other people because of what happened to me.
Right.
And he prayed with me, and I just experienced this release of this tension and the sense of freedom that I've never dealt with that in the same way. I truly believe that God, that was a miracle, and I was freed of that. And so there's been no turning back for me because of that experience,
Yeah.
and how it has transformed me like over time, and it just continues to. But I guess I just want to bring that up to encourage people that nobody is waiting or watching or expecting anything of you when you go to church. They're there for themselves. They're there, to do what they need to do. Um, but you just do what is best for you and do it in a way that's comfortable. Sit in the back of the church if you want to. You don't have to say the prayers. You don't have to kneel and stand. If you don't know what to do, that's okay. Um, but I guess just encouraging people that if they are on the fence, just to kind of like go and experience it and see what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what you're saying is in the adage, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so don't worry about what the thousandth mile looks like right now.
Right, right.
Worry about the first step. That's in your control. I think that's good practical advice for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've only recently been thinking deeply about trauma, and so I'm not well formed in this, but a couple of things occur to me that I'd like to chat with you. One, I hear over and over this adage that the body keeps score, that
Mm.
the body has a memory, especially in trauma, even if it's not physical trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the body still manifests it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot to say about that in the liturgy. Also, that the experience of trauma is the experience of a shattering of what you thought was reality,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and and then the shattering of reality leaves you alone,
Mm-hmm.
and so the experience of healing from trauma is somehow moving from alone, right, back into community, and then I don't have the word for it. It's a reclaiming of reality,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
a reentry into reality, or something like that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
um, it occurs to me more and more that these are fundamentally the patterns and the category of liturgy, especially of Eucharistic liturgy of the Mass,
Mm-hmm.
and so I want to think about that because I do think that there's a reason that profound healing happens through the Mass and the sacrament. Okay, the body
Mm-hmm.
keeps score. I mean, that's what Christ says. This is
Mm-hmm.
my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we immediately go to Christ is present in divinity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's worth taking some time thinking about why the words that Christ says are not, uh, "This is my divinity, here I am," but right,
Mm-hmm.
"This is my body," and then "This is my blood." Uh, that that's human.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we often first encounter trauma, right? I mean, how do I know my reality is
Right.
shattered? Because I'm bleeding, right? Like
Right. Right.
this is a fundamental human kind of thing. And that's what Christ says to us. From there, we recognize what theologians call the sacramental principle, that the body is a sign of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, even right now we're recording this at a distance.
Right.
We're using a teleconference, so I have a picture of Cathy on my screen, and I keep talking to the picture, right, to the
Right.
face
Right.
of Cathy that I can see. um uh but like, why do I look there, and
Mm-hmm.
not in the corner of a room at a picture on the wall or something? I mean, something else. It's because Cathy's body tells me where Cathy's soul is,
Mm-hmm.
right? If
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to a person, I look at the body.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
Mm-hmm.
see the soul. I look at the body, and the
Mm-hmm.
body tells me where the soul is. Right?
Mm.
These two come together, right? And that's the principle of the Eucharist. The body tells me where the blood and the soul and the divinity are. That's
Mm-hmm.
the principle of my presence. I certainly can't be present at Mass if I haven't drugged my body over the threshold of the door. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I can have my body there and not have my emotions there or my mind there or whatever. I can fail to be fully present. I got it. But okay,
Right.
God says, uh, not only do I want to use this sacramental principle, the body shows me where the rest of the person is, but the contact I want with you is the kind of contact which is expressed best by saying, "This is my body. Here I am."
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, like, what other sacrament says, "This is my body. Here I
Mm-hmm.
am"?
Mm-hmm.
It's marriage, right? That's what
Oh
marriage
yeah.
says. Here I
Yeah.
am, all of me, right?
Right.
But then, and again, this category of offering, of self gift, of being present as a present, a gift.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Here I am. I offer myself to you. I want to be present with you. That's what God says to us in the Eucharist. Here I
Mm-hmm.
am.
Mm-hmm.
Take, receive.
Yeah.
And not just take and receive in any old way, just for use, but in an intimate way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
seriously, we got to think about this. Where else do we say, "This is my body. Please press it to your lips,"
Mm-hmm.
right? But please consume me, like take me into you. I
Mm-hmm.
want to give myself to you and become you, enter into
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it seems to me that that is precisely the means of healing trauma.
Mm-hmm.
When something has broken down, the reality has been shattered. What we're looking for is the deeper reality, a
Mm-hmm.
reality which can say, I know that this is broken, but I have a body which is stronger than what has
Mm-hmm.
been broken.
Mm-hmm.
I have a full presence which can fill in all of the gaps. And
Mm-hmm.
that's actually for what we're looking, right? Is a
Yeah.
place we're looking.
Yeah.
Okay. Then my experience is one in trauma of being alone. I must be the only one who has suffered this.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world is against me, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then everyone else knows this about me, right? And
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you were sharing, actually, no one else knows this about you, right?
Right.
But that's how it feels, right?
It
That's
does. Yeah.
become
Yeah.
my new reality. My new perspective
Yeah.
is, all is dark, all is lost. Everyone knows this horrible thing about me. I'll never recover. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that we do in the liturgy? All right,
Mm-hmm.
one, you come, and if you just listen, you'll hear everyone else acknowledge the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've not been who I should be. I
Yep.
feel like the world is against me. I've been flirting with the demonic. I've been more than I can control myself. I
Mm-hmm.
need you to pray for me. That's literally what we say, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Pray, brothers and sisters, for me. I need it, please. Okay.
Right.
Then we tell our stories. That's what the liturgy of the word is, right?
Mm-hmm.
The proclamation of God's salvific deeds in human history. Only those stories are real.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The stories aren't like, "Oh, everything came out smelling like roses. It was
Mm-hmm.
just beautiful all along," right? No, there's real darkness. There's real problems in those stories, and God is getting his hands dirty. God is
Mm-hmm.
working with us in those stories, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not always clear. I mean, the liturgy of the word does a good job of saying, like, "Hey, you remember that problem that happened 3,000 years ago, and then God's solution 2,000 years ago, and now it's real for you," right? There
Right.
is the arc of salvation history, but we gather, we move away from being alone into being present with each other, and we
Mm-hmm.
hear our stories. And in those stories, we're supposed to hear wherever we are. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
certain if we listen,
Mm-hmm.
that word of God will always be present. Will always be something where I'm like, "No way.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was the only one who did that or struggled with that," or like, aren't I the only one who has that sin? Nope, nope. That one's been around since the garden. Uh, okay, then we get to hear the other part of the story, right? Which is the redemption. And what we were saying 10 minutes ago is actually, I think there's probably a large part of us, maybe all of us, actually know that story of redemption is out there. We're just saying, I don't want to hear it yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I'd like to hold on to my problems a little longer, right? I always remember Augustine's prayer, "Grant me chastity, but not yet." You know, I know where this is going, God, but I'm not ready for that full
Mm-hmm.
transformation, that full change. But it's always there for us to hear. I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
only one with this problem. And there is a solution. There's an answer. There's a God who wants to be present in a tradition who can overcome this. Okay, so trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the body keeps score. I had this feeling of alone, and the story I'm telling myself is that's the new reality.
Mm-hmm.
And what I need to do is tell that story, but then I also need to hear the other story, which is frankly, no, that's not the only reality. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what then is Christian liturgy? I mean, this is one of the most profound gifts that Christianity offers the intellectual world, plain and simple, and it's a critique, I think, of all other religions. What we think we want is escape from reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's our initial reaction to trauma. I just want to leave, abandon this, never return to it.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, we cannot escape reality.
Mm-hmm.
What we need is a way to enter reality. And this is exactly what Christian liturgy does at its absolute best. It
Mm-hmm.
says, this time is not a time for you to escape reality, it's a time for you to enter more fully reality.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that the crucifix is what, how can we look at Jesus on the cross and think that, how can we think that he doesn't understand what it's like to
Yeah.
feel less than or persecuted uh or traumatized, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's trauma in the worst degree, like that, you saw how he was treated, and you can go there and not only him say that like he's here, but guess what, I understand you, I know what
Yes.
it feels like.
Yeah.
And so your trauma becomes then almost validated or understood and empathized just by looking at the cross. You don't have to do anything else but look at the
Yeah.
crucifix.
Yeah.
And then he's offering his body to heal us. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
just
And
yeah.
and and back to that category of judgment, right? It's judgment in the sense of affirmation. The
Mm-hmm.
trauma that happened to you should not have happened. It
Mm-hmm.
was not right. You are correct. The
Mm-hmm.
world is subject to sin, and you've experienced that in an intense way. No one should have experienced that, right? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't say forget your trauma,
Right,
right?
right,
It doesn't say, it wasn't that bad.
right.
It says, no, I wanted more for you. Come back. Let me give you
When
that
you just
more,
said that, I just all
right?
of a sudden got super emotional. Like when you just said, I want more for you. Isn't that so beautiful? Just
Yeah,
to yeah, that's just, and one thing I also wanted to share is I wrote the majority of a book about my experience, and it is I wanted to title it Healing Depression. Honestly, you don't think of depression as something that can be healed, but with God, things can be healed. And so the subtitle was A Young Mother's Spiritual Journey through from brokenness to wholeness, but it would include the depression, the treatment, the recovery, and the healing. And the healing is the Jesus aspect of it. So the recovery is like more on a medical, mental health
sure.
aspect of it. But the healing is different than recovery because healing is being made back to whole. And that's not what recovery is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So what you're sharing is so significant. And so I don't know why that is just, and when you said about bringing up, you had the reality of trauma, and then you said a new reality. I remember there being a word used to, it begins with a D, when you have a distorted kind of view of reality. You've been, what is the word? Dis, it's
Well, I
almost,
say discombobulated, but I don't think that's the
yeah, no, this is something like if you're growing up in, say, an environment where you think that reality is one, you kind of live as if reality is one way, but you're actually living a life that has trauma that's not really acknowledged.
oh, okay. I was thinking disintegrated, which is one of the
No.
experiences of this, but yeah, you're describing something else.
Yeah, but it's I think too that when you go through healing, the like you said, the true reality is brought to you, and and our faith is the reality of heaven, and reality, the hope to come for us, and what Jesus did for us. And a lot of times we think of the spiritual as not reality, but it actually is reality of who we
Yeah.
were created by. So,
And I mean the very category of the mass, it's so wonderful that we doubt it, right? It
yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
be true, but
yeah.
it's that actually we do not separate the physical from the spiritual, the material from the immaterial. That it's all present at the same time.
Mhm.
That's the Eucharist, body, blood, soul, and divinity. That's the resurrection, right? The
Mhm.
resurrection of the body, um, and that's a body which uh, I don't know. It's a real question of whether it continues to have the signs of the trauma because they're now signs of healing,
Mhm.
or not. I have a good friend who's had a number of cancers, including some on his face, and so the more than 20 surgeries to remove the cancer and repair his face. And he has thought a lot publicly, and we've had several discussions about whether he's going to have the scars on his face in the resurrection. You know, which way will that go? We don't
Mhm.
know. They're right.
Mhm.
But one of the happiest thoughts is that actually I'll want the signs of healing, and what will
Mm.
happen is that I will be able to show somehow healing without wound. Right? Not
Oh,
I didn't have the
yeah,
wound,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
will show that this is how I am. I'm trying to think of a parallel that might be more fitting. I think it's something like mothers, right? Like no mother is going to give up the signs of her pregnancy that she was a mother, right? That
Mhm. Mhm.
that is part of who she is. But
Yeah.
the part that we remember is the life giving part, not the struggles that came after.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. All right. So, um, unless you want to share anything else more about the liturgy, I was going to ask you about your books.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the books. We're never done talking about the liturgy.
I
Uh,
know.
um, I I suppose I want to say sincerely, uh, I would like you to hear God saying, "Welcome back."
Hmm.
I would like you to hear God saying, "There's a place for you, and I want this transformation for you. I want more for you than you might be able to capable of wanting for yourself right now."
Hmm.
Uh, and so let's work to find that experience of the liturgy, and let's also work to give ourselves time to unfold in
Hmm.
that, because it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it can, but it
Hmm.
unfolds. And another reality about which we've not spoken is in that language of recovery. Um, I mean, there's an important sense in which Genesis 3 tells us we're all addicted to sin.
Hmm.
And the New Testament reminds us, we've all fallen short. And so I don't need to think of liturgy as just the one time healing and now it's all over.
Hmm.
I also need to think of liturgy as the place where I come back continually to be renewed and nourished and to grow deeper. And uh, my friends who are addicts have shared this with me, that like it's helpful to think of yourself as a recovering addict,
Hmm.
right? And to give yourself some room to know that the pain is real, the temptation is real, the hurt is real, and I may not be done hurting, or there
Hmm.
may be new pain.
Hmm.
But what I've found is the place where all of that can be worked out, the place where that has ultimate meaning. And so it's a continual practice. And then what happens is that the liturgy is not something I do for 50 minutes a week on a Sunday, right? The liturgy, the entire pattern of God giving and me receiving so that I can give back to God, that becomes the whole pattern for life. And then what I'm doing is plugging into the liturgy in various ways. I was able to jump into heaven at morning prayer today. I'm not able to jump in at evening prayer. I made mass on Sunday, but not on this. It all starts to fit together,
Hmm.
and we enter not discrete liturgies, but our whole life starts to enter and become an anticipation of the one eternal present, the one eternal liturgy.
Hmm.
Or another image for that is uh, God is love. God is Father, Son, and Spirit. The Father who speaks of his beloved Son, right?
Mm-hmm.
The great lover and the beloved and the love by which. These are the most profound ways of talking about the Trinity in our tradition. What I'm doing is entering into that communion of love, that relationship of love,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm learning to give and receive at that level.
Yeah, it's as you're saying, explaining that, it's I've been trying to come up with like explaining the mass as differently than, like I said, hearing a sermon or a preacher speak that's not actually a mass. But there's like a certain neutrality, like almost like time stands still a little bit,
Yeah.
For me, when I'm at the mass, there's no pressure, like there's no sense of somebody overstepping my boundaries or manipulating me or me trying to manipulate somebody else or me trying to prove if this is right or that's wrong. It's just like just being present and taking in the word and the Eucharist. There's something that's actually very eternal, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost like time stands still, and there's this neutral sense of just being and not
Yes.
having to prove or to be anything but what you are right in that moment, and being loved exactly the way you are right there in that moment. And I've been trying to kind of understand. I mean, I have my reasons why I believe in the Catholic faith and why I think that, but it's hard to put it in words to other people that don't believe that or don't experience that. What is so special and sacred about it, And those are just some of the characteristics, I guess, that I feel like I experience.
Yeah. I have similar experiences, and one of the things you're naming is what the tradition often calls contemplation or contemplative prayer, a way of being without having to speak or imagine or do. Like what you're doing is being present.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely a fundamental part of the tradition. The liturgy has all three of the regular expressions: vocal prayer, meditative prayer, and contemplative prayer. And just from hearing you say where you are, it sounds like you're having a contemplative experience of the mass, or you're
Mm-hmm.
engaging in it at the level of presence,
Mm-hmm.
which is absolutely true. It's there. It's also true that it's there at the level of word, of
Mm-hmm.
meditation, of thought, of rationality. In fact, of overabundance of rationality. And it's also true that it's there at the presence of the voice, of the vocal, of multiple thoughts spilling out and conversations going on and on. That this is exactly like marriage, right? Like there are times in the relationship when the right thing to do is talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk over each other and keep talking, right? And there are times when one word says it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
A single term or phrase captures the whole meaning. And there are other times when to speak would be to ruin the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all of that is true in the liturgy. All of that is ways of expressing our relationship with God, our prayer with God, and ways that God expresses his relationship with us.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. So much of what you're sharing is just bringing things to the surface for me and being able to verbalize my own experience, for listeners too, and just to make it easier for people to understand. Okay, so now do you want to talk about your books?
Sure.
Okay.
They're they're not nearly as exciting as the liturgy. um, so like everybody to get a PhD has to write a dissertation, and I was at a serious research university with other serious scholars, and so you have to prove that you're a serious scholar, that you can do all that stuff. That's what my first book does, right? It comes
Okay.
out of my dissertation. The questions that drove it, for me, uh, did not start where some of our conversation has been. That it wasn't with trauma. It was with desire. And I mean, a lot of my questions about myself are like, what am I doing wanting this?
Hmm.
And a lot of times, like, I come to realize I don't want the right thing. You know, like
Hmm.
why is my wanter broken? Right? It keeps wanting this thing, which just isn't working out. It's not good for me. Right? What's up with that? And also, can that ever change? right? Or am I just stuck with this bundle of wants and desires, which are not a reliable indication of what's true or good or even beautiful, right?
Mhm.
Like here I am
So you're
wanting
talking
ugly
about the
things.
ascetic pneumatology
Yes,
from John Cassian to Gregory the Great.
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
And so one of the questions uh, is it possible for my desire to change or to be reformed? What kind of growth is
Mm-hmm.
there, right? And as I started to thinking and reading more about that, I realized I'm not the first guy to have asked this question, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is in fact what all of the monks are asking, or at least the people at the beginning of our monastic tradition. The fancy word, it's used in the New Testament. It's common in Greek for training. Discipline is ascesis, or asceticism or ascetic practices. Ascetic practices that we have today that are very common are like fasting. We're all doing time limited eating. We're doing 14 hours of fasting a day, or we're fasting 1 day a week, or right. That's a very common practice in the body, which everyone thinks alters the body and the soul. It right.
Mm-hmm.
It changes what you eat, and how you eat changes who you are. That's the Eucharist. Become what you eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Become God. This is my body, blood, soul, and divinity. You are what you eat. Okay. uh, Other ascetic practices. I'm going to change my sleep pattern. I'm going to change my focus pattern. I'm going to force myself to be in community with other people. I'm going to not wear fancy clothes. I'm going to give alms, right? I mean, all of these traditional practices,
I'm gonna
everybody real.
declutter.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to get rid of clutter. Yes, yes, yes. You're looking at my office. That
No.
I hear that. I hear that judgment, Kathy.
No,
Yeah.
no, no,
Thank
no.
you.
I just think about myself.
Yeah. Um, uh, all of those practices would be called ascesis or asceticism.
Hmm.
And one of the things I realized in the tradition in the fourth century is where I started looking the 300s, and then a little later in the 400s and 500s. All these great theologians are really wrestling with that same question, and they're trying to figure out why these things work. Uh, and well, one of the answers is that's just how humans are, right? So I can push here or push there. I can give you a massage and you feel better, and like, okay, that's how the body works, and the body's connected to the soul. But the other fundamental reality is that God's at work, and so there's grace, which is changing you and reforming you. So then we get into all the delicate questions of, what does it mean to be human? I have a reason. I have a mind. I have a will. I want things. I choose things. I have a habit that comes back, and what I do today affects what I do tomorrow and makes it easier or not so easy. But I'm limited, and I have these intense experiences of my own limitations, and I also have these experiences of wanting to transcend my limitations,
Hmm.
right? And so how does that work? Well, these ascetic masters, these theologians, have a fantastic map of the human person, of the interior life and the exterior life, and how they fit together. And they have a fantastic map of community and what it means to authentically be present with other humans. And because they have such a good map of being a human person, and because they're living this life with grace, they have an incredible map of where God works.
Mm.
Right. And one of the things happening in the fourth century, the church is publicly declaring its faith in the Trinity: God as Father, God as Son, God as Spirit. If you think of the words of the creed that we say in the Mass, I believe in God the Father Almighty. I believe in His only Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord of life, and I believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Right? It's in the fourth century that we realize you cannot separate the church from the Trinity, and you cannot separate the Father from the Son from the Spirit, right? All four of
Hmm.
these realities go together. And so, boom, you've got everything you need in your grab bag to give a real, intense, focused discussion of the work of the Holy Spirit in the lives of those Christians who try to practice a life of self-gift, of
Hmm.
discipline. The fancy word for study the Holy Spirit is pneumatology, and the fancy word for discipline of giving yourself is asceticism.
Okay.
And so I labeled this again because you're academics and you have to prove that you're smart. I said, I'll call that ascetic pneumatology. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll say one of the real questions these people are answering is, what does the Holy Spirit do in the lives of those who give themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then in a technical sense, there's schools of thought, right? Not everybody says it in the same way. And so, what all academics do, I study the schools of thought. I make arguments about who knew whom, who's reading whom. It gets even more fascinating if you're into that nerdy stuff. Augustine is in this time period. Augustine writes more than anyone else can read. Like, I don't know that anyone else has ever read all that Augustine wrote. Um, Even professional scholars on him, right? I've not read everything Augustine wrote. Um, but I think you can look at different communities and actually prove that some people read these parts of Augustine, but not those parts, and other people read those parts, but not these parts. And so
Mm-hmm.
the historical work of trying to map all that out in the technical categories. And my argument there is there really are schools of thought you can see, and there's consistent application of the same principles uh, from the period John Cassian through Gregory the Great. And these are two of my favorite saints. Cassian and Gregory are both Latin authors. They write all of their stuff in Latin, but they are perhaps the only two who are translated into Greek. Right, many
Mm.
of the Greek fathers are translated into Latin, and we know Basil and Gregory Nazianzus and Greg of Nyssa, right, all those other guys. But Cassian and Gregory stick out because they get translated the other way. Uh,
Okay.
that's pretty profound. Gregory, the first pope, sorry, the second pope of the church to get the title the Great, Leo the Great, for whom my current employer in the university, Saint Leo, is named. Right, he's in this period as well, 150 years before Gregory. He's the first to earn the title the Great, and then Gregory, you know, later earns the title the Great. These are just incredible personalities that are really fun to study
Interesting.
and
Yeah,
prove.
yeah. That sounds
The
amazing.
the other book was written as a textbook for an undergraduate class that I was teaching. It was part of our Gen Ed program, and it's a fun question to think. I mean, the fundamental question of Christianity: who was saved, right, and
Mm-hmm.
why?
Yeah.
And a number of great thinkers have tried answering that question, and they've come up with different answers. And so we got to sit with that just to puzzle through why people would read scripture and tradition differently, and what the different kind of theories or presentations of how salvation works have to offer.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can hear the a common arguments regarding that. Um, but and sometimes I feel like two different arguments are actually kind of saying the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
um, if all we have to do is believe God to be saved, but we don't have to have actions. I mean, that's at the Catholic Church. We do believe that there needs to be
right.
both. But other religions will say you just have to believe. But if you truly believe, you're going to want to change and you're going to want to do. So to me,
It's the
I
way
feel
of
like it's
knowledge.
kind
Yeah.
of like how each one is describing it. I think that there's not as big of a difference as they think that there is.
Well,
Because you
the
can't
other
just,
thing is we get caught up in these phrases, right? So like faith
yes,
alone, or if I just profess, Christ on my lips, I'll be saved. It's
yeah,
true, like Scripture says that, or something like it. But it also says faith without works is dead, right? We
right.
get into this pattern sometimes of knowing the phrase and then arguing about the phrase. But then if we just took the phrase out of it and we asked, the Protestant saying it's faith alone, they're the ones working in the soup kitchen. They're the ones giving alms. They're the ones doing
Right,
all this
right,
great
right.
ministry
Yeah.
work. So they're living a life which says,
Right.
no, my faith definitely has relevance. It's just this technical question. I got to answer it that way. And similarly for the Catholic, like, no, it has to have acts and this kind of stuff. But I'm not going to do the principal action of going to mass. You know what I mean? It's like
Right, right, right. Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not doing what you say. You're not
Right,
sat
right.
with this. All of us are guilty of that hypocrisy.
Yeah.
I think, okay, well, one, it is absolutely the case. We always run up against our limits on this, right? Because we're asking a question about the mystery of God working in human lives. And well, I don't understand my whole life. right? So I probably am not going to get it right if I'm just trying to explain myself to someone else. But
Mm-hmm.
then I'm definitely not going to get it right when I'm trying to explain all of God to someone else, right? So that, like,
Right,
at some
right.
point, I got to leave room for saying, this is as far as I can get explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the question of, is there more to it, or is my ability to explain it the sum total of it? I hope
Mm-hmm.
there's more to it than my
Yeah,
ability to
yeah,
explain it, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's right. But the one of the great paradigms of this on the faith and love, the knowledge and the action, is to think about the value of knowledge, the meaning of knowledge. Why is it that I want to know anything?
Mm-hmm.
And some things I want to know simply to manipulate other things, right? I mean, I want to know how my calculator works so I can make it work for me. I want to know how my truck works so I can drive it or fix it or do things. That's one kind of knowledge. And we're very interested in that. And we often go to school for that and do that. Um, that is not the same kind of knowledge I want about my wife,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I do want that knowledge, how
Mm-hmm.
she work and how she put together. I'd like to be able to fix things when that's what I should do, but that's actually not really what I want, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
actually the why in my marriage or any relationship, right? The knowing another person is not that kind of knowledge. Why do I want to know another person? Really, I want to know another person because I want to know if I love you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what I'm looking for in knowledge of another and what I'm trying to tell other people about myself is, here's a good part of me, love it. Here's a beautiful part of me, love it. Here's a true part of me, love it. That that is the purpose of knowledge of a person, is love,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just knowledge for its own sake.
Right.
And then I think about, okay, well, what comes next? Obviously, the more I know about you, the more I love you.
Mm-hmm.
The more I realize goodness and beauty in you and want that, I think it's great. I want to behold that. I want to participate in that. You've got something I don't. Please give it to me, right? And then the more I know you, the more I think, wait a minute, I have some goodness that would be relevant to you. I have some beauty I'd like to show you too.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to know that about me, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is how relationships develop. This is what we want out of life and out of knowledge. It was never knowledge simply for the sake of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I have a high opinion of truth. I'm a professor, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm in the business of speaking truth and helping others do so. But the point of speaking truth is also to love. The,
Mm-hmm.
the point of faith, the point of God giving us some knowledge of himself, of allowing us to think about himself as he thinks of himself,
Mm-hmm.
the point of faith is to love.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul says this, right? The faith, hope, and love, these are the theological virtues. In the end, what remains, it's not faith, right? What remains is love. And when we think about that, love begets its own knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if I go back to my paradigm of knowledge, the things that I really want to know are the things which can only be known when they're also loved, right? That's what's going on in marriage. I
Mm-hmm.
get to a point and I say, I cannot know everything I want to know about you unless I love you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to give myself to you, and I've got to let you give yourself to me so that I can get over the limits of just that scientific observational knowledge, and I
Mm-hmm.
can jump into that relational knowledge, that experiential knowledge, that
Mm-hmm.
communion knowledge.
Now
And
it's coming back for me to the crucifix
it
and Jesus
100%.
saying, I want to know everything about you, even your most painful
Yes.
experiences. And look, I'm going to show you mine so
Yes.
that you can feel comfortable sharing
That's
with
right.
me, right?
That's right. And then we say, I think I want to know you, God, but I don't want to share. I don't actually want to know you. I want to know you, but I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
a real human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing is we're treating liturgy, or we're treating the church, or we're treating God simply as an object. I
Mm-hmm.
want to know the limits of this hammer so I can use it appropriately, and what kind of nail will it nail? Or I want to know the limits of this car so I don't drive it off the road, or right. I mean, but there's way more. Those are not the
Mm-hmm.
actual fascinating, interesting things. I mean, this brings us back in another way to our point about liturgy. I
Mm-hmm.
get to a certain point where I say, I kind of want to know this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more about this. And I can get to a limit where I know all there is to know about it. Now I have to know it. I have to,
Mm-hmm.
and it is no longer an it, but a whom, a person,
Mm-hmm.
a three
Yeah.
persons.
And it's kind of like the starting point. There's a starting point, and then I think of the one of the songs that they sing at Mass, like being drawn deeper still, right?
Yeah,
Like being drawn deeper. And it's almost like people have to find a place that of trust, that unconditional love that God is offering, and then they can be drawn deeper and deeper and
absolutely.
deeper, right?
Absolutely. And there's kind
Yeah.
of a hurdle or a breakover point. Um, I mean, I think about this often. Um, like I could ask you, Kathy, why did you get married?
Hmm.
Uh, and I mean, I'm sure you would have answers. I think your husband's name is Steve.
Yeah,
I think you would
yeah.
have answers about it that would make sense. Oh, he was handsome, or he's really good at holding hands, or he provided for me, or I mean, there'd be all these things that you could say about him. But at the end of the day, I actually hope that you would say, Tommy, after 38 years of marriage, I don't actually have a reason that's sufficient to the reality of Steve.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Not none of the things that I thought about Steve end up being adequate to describe why I ultimately chose this man. And in
Hmm.
fact, after 38 years of marriage and loving him, I love him more.
Hmm.
Okay, and then I could say, "Oh, that's beautiful, Kathy. That's wonderful." Tell me, uh, which of you chose to get married?
Which of us?
Yeah, who's
Oh.
responsible for your marriage? And it may be the case that Steve proposed to you,
Hmm.
right? Uh, but it would certainly be wrong to say, "Oh, Steve started it," right? It was
Yeah,
all his fault or anything. Like, no, actually, at this point in your marriage, it's something we did,
right,
and everything we do is something we do. It's
right.
cooperation. It's not like he did something for 5 minutes and then I pick up and do something. It's not cooperation by alternating.
Hmm.
It's cooperation by knowing the same thing, choosing the same thing, doing the same thing, right? It's cooperation in love. It's union of wills.
Hmm.
And that's exactly the paradigm for salvation, right? We get hung up with saying, uh, you know, who did what bit? And from the perspective of a mature Christian, that that's never the right question. It's
Hmm.
I'm doing it together with God. We want the same thing. I'm not
Hmm.
reluctantly being holy. I mean, I am. In as much as I'm holy, I get it. It's against my will still. I'm not mature as a Christian,
Hmm.
but I'm saying the saints, they want holiness.
Hmm.
They want the same thing God wants. They know the same thing God wants. It's not a competition,
Right,
right?
exactly.
And
Hmm.
we all know that, right? When I make marriage out to be a competition, I'm going to lose every time because marriage is not a
Hmm.
competition. It's a
Hmm.
union. It's a communion. Right?
Yep,
A loving union of wills. That's salvation. It's not a competition between me and God.
right.
It's a transformation in love.
It's like
Okay,
God has our best interest more than we could ever even
absolutely.
conceive. Like the interest he has for us is so
Yeah,
much greater than we could even ever
yeah.
imagine ourselves,
And
right?
faith then, just is the wrong word, but in comparison to love, just is the right word. Faith is just the beginning of that.
Hmm.
Faith is just God showing us, hey, look, I'm more profoundly beautiful than you've seen before, and you're more
Hmm.
profoundly beautiful than you've seen before.
Hmm.
Let's fall in love.
Hmm. That's wonderful. I love that. Um, can you share where listeners can find your books?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I hope they can find them in the library. As they say, any reputable bookstore. They're like all things, they're available by all kinds of online vendors. The
Okay.
first book, Ascetic Pneumatology, is out with Oxford University Press.
Okay.
It is an academic book and it's published to be purchased by like libraries.
Okay.
Um, but it's readily available anywhere that Oxford University Press is available. You can definitely find copies of it. And to my knowledge, it's only in hardback. Uh,
Okay.
but you can also get digital versions of it, like anything. The Who is Chosen, that's with Whipfinstock. It's a smaller book. It's in paperback. I think there are hardback editions of it that originally came out in paperback, a short book, and it's readily available. And because it was taught in a class, it's kind of funny if you look for it, like on Amazon. Uh, often the vendor will link it to some of the other books that were read in that class. So it'll say, hey, if you're
Oh,
interested in this textbook, you might want to read Augustine or von Balthasar or Calvin or Thomas or, some of the
yeah.
people that are mentioned in that.
Interesting.
And so that, yeah, I've always smiled about that.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so the last question I usually like to ask everyone, and I'm going to gear this to the liturgy just because that's what we've been talking about. But any last words of wisdom, support, or encouragement for anyone looking to return or to learn more about the liturgy?
Yeah, I want to return to that kind of idea I was trying to get across that if you're kind of standing on the outside mass looking in and thinking something's not right here, this is not beautiful enough, I think that's the right intuition. I really do. I had this experience from the opposite side, but I've met people who've had it, in the reverse. Every time I had a question, uh, I had a mentor who knew the tradition well enough to give me a mature answer.
Mm,
Every time I batted up against being a 16-year-old man or 17-year-old man or an 18-year-old man, right, trying to push out and puff up my chest, I was able to find someone who was stronger than I was and say, I'll
mm,
push back, but I will teach you how to get strong in that way. But I've met a lot of people who've had a sincere, deep, and meaningful question. They've met a priest, or they've met a Sunday school teacher, or seen someone on YouTube, and who's given a bad answer.
mhm,
And they've gone, well, I guess that's all there is to it. I guess those Catholics are just stupid. Or they've come to a liturgy and they've said, man, that was really ugly. I guess that's
mhm,
all there is to it. What I want to say is that's not all there is to it.
mm.
Let's find you someone else in the tradition who's more mature, and it's very possible that you just need to pick up one of the great saints of the tradition. You need to read Cassian. You need to read Augustine. You need to read Gregory the Great. You need to swim in the deep water, not in the shallow. And so, I mean, I want to invite people that are looking at the church, they're judging, and they're saying it's got to be more. There must be more. The reality I'm seeing in front of me is not it. You are right. uh, Look deeper in the tradition, and I think you'll find it.
Yeah, and just as you were sharing that, which I think is such great advice, um, also what we've talked about is how as you get deeper, it becomes more. It's finding the place that you feel comfortable or you feel good coming to, and that you can take it in a way that is comfortable for you, like you said, that whether it's the
Yeah,
music or whatever. But Thomas, thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to share it with listeners. And I knew from our conversation on the phone that this was going to be a great conversation. And yeah, so thank you so much for everything that you're doing, and thank you for being here with us today.
you're welcome, Callie. It's been a privilege to speak with you, and I look forward to more people coming back.
Awesome. Thank you.